Alright, in our next video we're going to look at subtracting a couple of polynomials. So we're told to find the difference, that means subtract. Key step here is to distribute the negative sign and then add the like terms together. So that's what I will do for this first expression here. I'm going to distribute my negative sign and turn all of these terms to the opposite. So I'll have a negative 7 and then a positive 3x and a negative 7x cubed. Once I've got that, I could probably rewrite my other expression as well, so I've got it on the same line. And I'll write it without parentheses because now at this point all I'm really worried about is hunting for like terms that I can add together. So starting with the biggest exponent first, I'll go for the 9x cubed. And notice that I have a like term in negative 7x cubed. Putting those together, it gives me 2x cubed. Next, I'll look for a squared term. Well, here we go. We have x squared, and apparently that's it. So I got a plus x squared as the next term in my difference. And then I'll look for the x term, the linear term. I've got an 8x and a 3x. Put those together. We have 11x. And finally, the constants involved in the problem. We've got a negative 4 and a negative 7. Put those together, that will be negative 11. So there's our polynomial written in standard form and everything. Second example of subtraction. Once again, distribute the negative sign to the polynomial we're subtracting. It turns into negative 4x squared minus 3x plus 7 at the end. Because I have the subtracting a negative number. Rewriting the original expression. Maybe I could have put this in the right order, but this is fine. Leave it as is. There's x squared and negative x. Once again, look for some like terms, starting with the x squared terms. 5x squared and negative 4x squared put together give me positive x squared. Negative x and negative 3x are negative 4x when put together. And finally, negative 4 and positive 7 is going to equal positive 3. So there's my difference. So that's subtracting a couple of polynomials. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply some polynomials together. So multiplying, I like to think of it, call it the handshake method. It's kind of like FOIL, it's just a lot crazier. There's just a lot more stuff going on. But the premise of distributing all the terms in one polynomial to all the terms in the other remains the same. So that's what FOIL was. It was an acronym that helped us remember to distribute everybody from one polynomial to everybody in another polynomial. So here we go. If I want to multiply x plus 1 times 5x cubed, etc., I need to distribute all the terms in one to all the terms in the other. I'll start with the x. And I'm going to distribute this to all of these terms. So when I do that, I multiply. First terms multiply together give me 5x to the 4th. And then minus x cubed. And then plus x squared. And then, so I got to distribute to everybody. Go meet everybody, shake their hand. That's where the handshake method name comes from. And negative 4x here. So x has gone and met everyone, shook everyone's hand, we're good to go. Now 1 has to do the same. So 1 times 5x cubed is 5x cubed. Now here's where I would actually use the vertical method of addition. I like to write my like terms right underneath the one that I know it's going to be added to in a little bit. So 1 plus 5x cubed, I line it up underneath the other x cubed term. 1 times negative x squared is negative x squared. 1 times x is positive x. And finally, 1 times negative 4 is going to be negative 4. So I've got my like terms lined up vertically. I'm going to go ahead and add them together now. 5x to the 4th stays as it is. Negative x cubed plus 5x cubed is going to be 4x cubed. The next one, the x squared terms, x squared and negative x squared cancel and actually turn into 0x squared, which I don't have to write. So the next term that I will write down will be negative 3x, which is what I get when I take negative 4x plus 1x. And finally, the negative 4 is the constant. There's my expression. So that's distributing both terms from one to all the terms of the other. Now you can do the same thing going in either direction for this next example. I could take x squared times x squared times negative 3, and work it that way. Or I could take the expressions on the right and distribute them the other way. So I like to go this way in this case. X times x squared is x cubed. And 2x squared. And 4x as I distribute. And then we'll go ahead and distribute the negative 3. And always take the negative sign with you. Don't forget about that. It gives negative 3x squared and negative 6x. And finally, negative 3 times 4 is going to be negative 12. Go ahead and add those like terms together. X cubed is what it is. 2x squared minus 3x squared will be negative 1x squared. 4x minus 6x will be negative 2x. And negative 12 just is what it is, hanging out the end. On our final example, we've got 3 different polynomials, all of them binomials, and they're all supposed to be multiplied together. So I'd remind you of what you would do if you had to multiply, let's say, 2 times 3 times 4. If I was going to multiply 2 times 3 times 4, I'd probably multiply 2 times 3 first and get 6, and then I'd take 6 times 4 and I would get 24. It's the same idea we're going to do here. You know, way back when you learned how to do this, you wouldn't have said, oh, I'll take 2 times 3 and 2 times 4 and then multiply them together. You know, that'd be silly. You just multiply 2 of them together and then multiply the product by the third. Same premise here. Let's multiply 2 of these things together. And whatever I get, I will take that product times the third. So multiplying 2 of these binomials together means I need to use FOIL. I have x squared. I've got negative 4x. I've got positive 3x. And I've got negative 12. So that's me foiling the first 2 and then combining some like terms. Extend our page a little bit. So combining the like terms in the middle, I end up with x squared minus x minus 12. Now, that's just part of my problem because I need to multiply that by the other factor, x minus 5. So I do a little bit of distribution or handshake method, whatever you want to call it. X times x squared is x cubed minus x squared. That's a negative 12. Sorry being a bit messy here. We got minus 12x. And then I take negative 5 and do the same. Take the negative with you. Negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times negative x will be plus 5x. And finally, negative 5 times negative 12 will be positive 60. Go ahead and combine some like terms vertically. X cubed minus 6x squared out of minus 7x plus 60. And there we go. We have multiplied 3 binomial factors together. And that'll do for this video.